Welcome to Food Justice. Hello there. I'm just eating my morning cabbage. Hello CFL, it's Gabby here with Food Justice. Is that not how you eat your cabbage? Honestly, it's not usually how I eat mine. I often eat mine cooked, or I also eat it fermented. Now, fermenting it is where you take cabbage, water, and salt, and you put them in a jar and you leave it for about a week or two. And what happens is that all of this bacteria forms, and that bacteria, all of these little guys, they eat parts of the cabbage while releasing other things that help to make the cabbage last longer. Now, what we're going to be making today is called Sauerkraut, which is German, and in German it means sour cabbage. So why do you think we would make fermented vegetables? It does taste really good, and it's actually really good for your stomach, for your gut. But the big reason that people for thousands and thousands of years have made fermented vegetables is that it lasts for a really long time. So in times when food is scarce, maybe through the winter when there isn't as much produce, or just when we're not able to access food as much, canned and fermented vegetables will last longer. And it stays good, it doesn't rot, it doesn't go bad. People have been fermenting different kinds of vegetables all around the world for thousands of years. Pickled cucumbers, which we see a lot of all over the place, and which a lot of times is just known as pickles, those were first made in India about 4,000 years ago, and India is where cucumbers are originally from. There's kimchi from Korea, which uses cabbage, different vegetables, fish sauce, and spices. There's suan tai from China, which oftentimes uses cabbage and mustard greens. And the pickled cabbage that we're having today, the fermented cabbage, it actually was first made in China. While workers were building the Great Wall of China, they would make and eat fermented cabbage almost 3,000 years ago. There's Cebolla Encurtidas, which is from Ecuador and Mexico and uses red onion and lime to pickle. There's pickled lime from India, pickled lemons. There's cornichons, which are these tiny little pickles from France. There are pickles all over the world. So let's see what we're going to need to make this sauerkraut. Of course, we're going to need our cabbage. We're also going to need salt. And we're going to need a cup of water. And then we need some spices. Today, what I decided to put in are caraway seeds. We also have mustard seeds. And we have cardamom seeds. You can put different kinds of spices. You could also put garlic. You can also make it plain and just put the salt. The first thing that we want to do is remove the core of the cabbage. The core is not that edible. It's pretty hard and tough. So with the help of an adult, carefully remove the core. Next, you want to cut the cabbage in half. This part's a little bit tricky since cabbages are pretty thick. So you definitely want the help of an adult and a sharp knife. Next, you're going to want to cut the cabbage in half again. So we will have 4 cabbage quarters. The next thing we have to do is cut slices into the cabbage. So we're going to very carefully cut down and cut until all of the cabbage is done. Now, since this is a video, how about we try a little bit of magic here? That's better. All right, next we're going to add our spices, sprinkle them around. Don't forget the salt. We want to put 1 teaspoon of salt. Next, we're going to want to use a wooden spoon and start mashing up the cabbage. This part helps to release the juices of the cabbage. Next, we're going to let the cabbage rest. You can let it rest for 10 minutes to a half an hour or an hour. The longer, the better. But if you're in a rush, 10 minutes is fine. All right, so while our cabbage is resting and taking a nap, how about we listen to some krautrock? Krautrock is German rock from the 1970s. Can you guys hear me? All right. I think that's enough of that. So let's check on how our cabbage is doing. Now that our cabbage has had a nice long nap and produce lots of juice, and we've been introduced to some new music. It's time for us to mash some more. All right, so we're going to want to mash up the cabbage a little bit more, get out some energy in that mashing. It's time for us to put the cabbage in a jar. We're going to want to use a glass jar. It could be any glass jar that has a lid that can be sealed. The one I'm using is called a mason jar. You want to make sure to sterilize the jar first. That is, you pour hot boiling liquid in it and let it sit. Pour it out and let it air dry on a paper towel. All right, that's better. So now we have our mason jar filled up. We're going to pour our water in. The water needs another teaspoon of salt mixed into it before we pour it. So make sure to put your teaspoon of salt, give it a good mix, and then you're going to fill until you reach the top of the jar. We're going to screw on our lid tight, give it a little shake to make sure it's tight, and we're going to set it aside. There's going to be a lot of activity over the week, so you want to make sure to put the jar on a tray. That way it can catch some of the liquid that might spill out. You can put it on a plate, you could put it on a paper plate, whatever you have around that could work, that could catch the liquid. Now the last thing I want to do, that I often do while I'm cooking, you can choose to do it, you can choose not to. I like to sing a little bit and dance around. Sometimes it can make the food taste better. Okay, so we're gonna let that rest for about a week, and then we get to try it, and I'll get to taste and tell you what I think of it. All right, thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you again soon. Bye! Can you think of any other pickled vegetables that you've tried in your life? What kind of things do you eat pickled vegetables with at home? I'd love to know.